Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're diving into a head-to-head tabletop comparison between the Smith and Wesson M&P and the legendary Glock 17. These are two of the most popular striker-fired handguns used for law enforcement, self-defense, and competition shooting. In this video, we'll go over ergonomics, trigger quality, reliability, customization, and price, as well as my opinions to help you decide which one's better for you. So let's get started.
Thank you all for being here. Let's get started.
Wow, great attitude, Ron.
Sorry, I was talking to these ribs.
Let's start with design and build quality. Both pistols feature a polymer frame and a steel slide. There are some key differences. The M&P 2.0 has a more aggressive Armornite finishing, which is like a black nitrite finish, for enhanced durability, while the Glock 17 Gen 5 features a DLC coating, which improves corrosion resistance. Glock is known for its simple, rugged design, whereas the M&P 2.0 incorporates front slide serrations, an extended beaver tail, and more aggressive grip texture. While Glock's aesthetic is minimalistic, the M&P leans
Today, Junior!
modern ergonomic feel. Overall, both are built to last, but if you prefer a pistol with better grip texture and a more modern appearance, the M&P 2.0 definitely has an edge here. One of the biggest differences between these two platforms is ergonomics. The M&P is widely praised for its natural grip angle and aggressive texture, which locks your hand in even when wet. Plus, it offers 4 interchangeable back straps, allowing you to customize the grips to your hand size. The Glock 17, on the other hand, has more boxy grip, which some shooters will find less comfortable. The Gen 4 and Gen 5 models introduce modular back straps, which help, but they don't contour to the hand as well as the M&P designs. The Gen 5 also removed the finger grooves, which is actually a welcome change. So this is a Gen 5. Back here I have a Gen 4, so I can show you the differences. We'll just go right here. Finger grooves versus no finger grooves. So we do full grip on this one. I actually have a grip module on this one though. Versus Gen 5. Now, the other thing I will give M&P an edge for is in terms of changing the back straps. So for an M&P, all we do is pop the mag out. There is a beaver tail right here. Turn it 90 degrees. We pull out the tool. Grip module comes out, and you can swap in whatever grip module you have that works best for you. Put it back in, it snaps into place. Take the pin back in, rotate it 90, and you're done. Where a Glock requires a little bit of extra work. So, safe. And you're gonna have to get a tool, punch out this pin in order to actually remove the grip. I'm going to put it on. It's just the same thing in reverse. I'm doing this one live. There we go. Pops in. Pin goes in. Push it through and we're good. I would say in terms of ease of changing grips, M&P definitely also gets an extra point in that. To continue a little bit more about grip angles, the Glock 17 platform, if I recall correctly, is a 22 degree grip angle, which when it comes to actually using the weapon, you're gonna aim down the sights, your wrists. In terms of feel, it feels like you're almost locking your wrist forward more. You're exaggerating pointing, so when it comes to getting a natural aim, I find myself looking for the sights a bit more. And I feel like I'm pointing down, even though I want to aim up higher. Whereas the Smith and Wesson has a very similar to a 1911 grip angle in terms of being a little bit straighter. In terms of natural pointing, it's just, I find, far easier to pick up a target, aim, and not have to find myself aiming low because I'm pointing the muzzle down. Because the Glock grip, when you're gripping a Glock, it almost makes you want to point down a bit to get your wrist at the angle that's appropriate for the Glock, where the Smith and Wesson is a more straight up and down approach, and I find myself picking up targets and lining up my sights a lot easier. And then in terms of grip texture, this almost has the texture of skateboard tape. This is a like 7-year-old gun, longer than that, it's almost a 10-year-old gun, and this thing still has the grip texture of almost relatively new, and it feels like skateboard tape. And it's really hard to lose my grip, especially when you're doing like rapid fire or shooting for long periods of time. Whereas both Glock models, the Gen 4 and the Gen 5, this stippling is fine in terms of just like a generic use. But if you want to do heavy usage, or it's wet, blood, dirt, mud, whatever, I find gripping a Glock to be incredibly difficult, to where I find myself hooking the front of the trigger and pushing in order to keep a better grip. Because this is how I shoot Glocks, is I'll take my offhand ring finger and put it in front and push down and in. That's how I get a good grip with a Glock. And I can't really use a light when I do shoot a Glock because that's how I shoot them. Or Smith and Wessons, I don't really find myself having that problem because of this aggressive grip texture. I don't need to. Everything is pretty solid. Okay, now let's talk some triggers. The M&P 2.0 has seen some major improvements over the original, featuring a crisper break, tactile reset, and a flat face design on some models. It feels clean, responsive, and compared to earlier versions. So I have two versions. They're both Pro Series. This is the older Pro Series model with the hook trigger. And just for safety purposes, since the safety hinge is a part of the trigger, when it comes to squeezing, you just find you don't get a full grip on it. If you shoot from the bottom of the trigger, it requires you to almost get a full trigger, like get your finger fully on the trigger in order to shoot it. And then it's just a straight back, and it's about a 5 and some change trigger pull. And then the reset, still tactile, but there's some sponginess here. And even when you hit the wall, you can, like I'm at the wall and I can play with it pretty well before I fully pull through. Compared to the newer flat face model, this is a newer flat face model. Nothing, right? The safety mechanism is just like the Glock in terms of it's just interrupted in the center of the trigger. Very light. There's not as much slop, and when there is, like in this play, it's not mushy, whereas on this one you like hit a point and then hit a point and then hit a point, so it's like 3 little separate pieces of slack you gotta cut through. Whereas on these newer triggers, it is just one quick fluid, pulls up, I'm at the wall, just to be safe, I'm at the wall, but same thing, it's about a 5-pound trigger still as well. The reset, a little bit more crisp, it's a little quieter too, but just I just think, and on top of that, just in terms of looks, let's just compare them side by side. I would say flat face looks a little bit better than the round trigger. In terms of overall, the triggers function exactly the same. They're the same weight and everything. I just think you do have a little bit less slop play, and this one just feels a lot more smooth compared to the older hook trigger. Now comparing them to Glock triggers in my opinion, I'm not gonna lie guys, they're dog shit. Like this is the Gen 4, my older Gen 4. In terms of slop, this thing is incredibly stiff, and just to pull through this slop requires significantly more effort than on the M&P, which is almost no effort at all. I feel like you actually do need to put some weight in order to get past the slop. I hit a little bit of a wall, and then it's the brake, which the brake is almost like its own extra pull in and of itself. Like I hit the wall and it should just brake crisp, but it more breaks and then I have to pull through, and I don't like it. It's, as everyone I'm sure knows, standard Glock triggers are pretty much dog shit, and anyone and everyone will get an aftermarket trigger. Now the Gen 5 improved slightly, but I won't say much. This is the Gen 5. Again, no ammo. It's still a stiff, heavy trigger to the wall. And then once you hit the wall, pulling, break. Still a 5-pound trigger as well, a little over 5. But it's just this stiff mush you have to fight through. And once you hit here, you find yourself putting in more effort to stay along the wall while you're getting your sights. You're putting in actual muscle here, whereas on the M&P, this is 0 effort. I'm sitting on the wall comfortably. I can sit here all day long and I'm not putting in any effort to hold this trigger back. Whereas Glocks, you are actually actively, it feels like you're actively fighting to hold this back. And then the brake. So in my opinion, M&P triggers out of the box far beat Glock in any way, shape, and form. So I'm going to give yet another point to the M&Ps. Okay, let's talk reliability now. Reliability is a must-have for any defensive pistol. Both of these firearms deliver. The Glock has been tested in military and law enforcement settings worldwide, proving its ability to function in even the worst conditions. The Glock has been the standard law enforcement issued gun for decades now for a reason, is because this thing is absolutely bulletproof. You can go on YouTube and watch people torture test Glocks, freeze them in blocks of ice, throw them off buildings, and this thing will still function. It is the AK-47 of the pistol world. You cannot break this thing, and you can treat it like shit and it will still work for you. Where the M&P, for example, is not military tested as well as Glocks are. They don't have the historical background to prove that they are as reliable. These things have been used religiously in law enforcement and civilian settings, and they've functioned exceptionally well. Thousands and thousands of rounds, minimal malfunctions, and as this thing, it features a reinforced steel chassis to reduce flexing while it's under recoil. Both pistols are definitely built to withstand years and years of abuse, but if historical tracking matters the most, the Glock definitely has the edge in terms of reliability. This thing is used worldwide by militaries everywhere for a reason. You cannot break this thing. It's completely reliable, and it's built that way for a reason. It is bulletproof. So Glock definitely gets the edge in terms of reliability. So Glock finally gets a point. When it comes to aftermarket supports, again, the Glock is the king. There's endless options for triggers, slides, barrels. You can get an optics cut, magazines extensions, muzzle brakes. The Glock is the ultimate customizable Lego set. There's a reason why Gucci Glock is a thing, because you can take this gun and completely revamp it to anything that you want it to be. It can be a race gun, it can be the most reliable, hard-hitting shooter, it can be accurate, it can be fast. People Gucci out Glocks for a reason. You can take an optics cut, muzzle brakes, better triggers, better magazines, better slide releases, everything, and turn this into a gun that far outpaces many multi-$1,000 guns. The M&P, on the other hand, it doesn't have as good of an aftermarket support system. And for example, this is the M&P 2.0 core, so it comes already cut with the plastic mounting plates. The plastic mounting plates are dog shit. Let's just be honest. If you don't buy aftermarket optics plates, you're going to run into a lot of issues. So this is an aftermarket C&H optics plate. In terms of other features, muzzle brakes, M&Ps don't really come with those. Triggers, there are some that are really good. Apex triggers are a good example. But in terms of other aftermarket support, you're not going to find a lot for M&Ps, where Glocks, it is nearly in limitless supply. So I will give Glock that advantage. When it comes to aftermarket support, Glocks win hands down. Alright, now let's talk price and value. The M&P 2.0 and the Glocks are comparable in terms of price. The variations generally differ between like the hundreds of dollars based on the models you choose. Optics cuts add cost, different variations of models. So there's like the long slides for Glock 17s, there's Pro Series for Glocks, there's compacts, subcompacts. There's all different variations, but generally they all stay within the same value, plus or minus $50 to $100. I would say Glocks hold a better resale value for their reputation, durability, and everybody buys a Glock pretty much. M&Ps definitely don't hold their resale value, but M&Ps definitely hold their quality. So in terms of price, cost, if you want to buy on a budget, you can easily go find a police trade-in Glock for half of the price. Spend that half of the money you saved on getting it milled, getting better triggers, and you're going to have a better gun than a stock Smith and Wesson. But if you want to just go to a store and say, I want this, I'm going to say they both get a point in terms of cost. They're both affordable depending on what models you choose. So for example, this is the 2.0 Core Series. As of right now, if we look online, we can get this gun without the optic or the light for $799 on Sportsman's Warehouse. Whereas the Glock 17 MOS, you can pick up for around $729, the Gen 5 Glock 17 MOS. So if we're talking price, they're pretty much the same. It's just once it comes to starting add-on to stuff, optics, lights, that's where you definitely start to see the money go away. But in terms of price, these guns are, in my opinion, the same, so they both will get a point in terms of price. So in closing, which one's better? If you want customization, incredible durability, a massive aftermarket, the Glock 17 is definitely the way to go for you. If you want to be a baller on a budget, you can find trade-ins for Glock 17s and make it exactly what you want it to be. But if you want a gun that is stock, out of the box, a better performer, the Smith and Wesson is 100% the way to go. It's my personal choice. I've been carrying Smith and Wesson handguns for almost a decade now, over a decade now. I trust these with my life. These are the best out of the box pistols you can buy for a civilian law enforcement purpose. And at the end of this video, I'm going to say M&P 2.0 wins. If you have a disagreement with me, you think I'm stupid and you think Glocks are far superior because Glocks are the shit, let me know in the comments down below. Comment your opinions, what you think is best. If you think I should have expanded on something more, should have talked about more things, that the Glock is better about X, let me know. Till then, I'll be in the comments waiting for you guys to roast me. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll be doing more breakdowns on firearms, gear, everything in the near future. So stay subscribed and stay ready. Thanks.